think about what heals you. Like what gives you that calm, that brings you back to center, whatever is that thing. And just learn how to just be okay with that. And know that it's going to change over time.
Welcome back to the fam, y'all. My name is Parker Johnson. To my left, I've got
Dr. G. Hi, everyone.
To my right, I've got
Pamphinette. Nice to see you guys.
This is a multi-generational podcast on Black voice in the West Coast.
Yes.
It's nice to see y'all again.
Oh, it's good to see you.
We've been laughing and giggling a lot on camera, so I think this is going to be a giggly episode. But today we want to get into roadblocks of healing, because it just seems relevant in our lives right now.
Yeah.
We've talked about trying to access rest. That's an ongoing theme.
Yep.
Trying to be still, sitting with ourselves. It's very hard to do. It is very hard to do.
That was so directed.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
The TikTok queen.
Yeah, but this is a common theme. So we all lead different lives.
Yes.
And our schedules are all over the place. And so I'm curious how, as a collective, how do we access rest? But also, why is it so hard for us to experience that rest? The face, the breath.
Dr. G, you start.
Yeah. What keeps you?
I think part of the challenge is that there's so many things going on, and when you have so much happening and feel like you're responsible to people, so it's not just like, oh, if I don't do it, it's me. It actually has impact on others. It makes it hard to prioritize yourself. And that ends up being one of the roadblocks, is maybe sometimes if we overschedule or commit too much, and I know we're all trying to do better, right? Like, no is a complete sentence, has one of the psychologists said, right? And just understanding that other people aren't going to take care of you.
Yeah.
That took me a while to figure out. Like, people see you tired and dragging, and you're thinking, okay, they're gonna notice. And then they won't ask. But it's, how are you feeling? I'm tired. Oh, would you like?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's part of it. Is that's definitely a roadblock. How about for you?
I feel like for me, it's less so much about, feeling that need of responding to other people, but I think it's also just checking in with myself. I think, as we mentioned about being still, I think for me, checking in to be like, okay, you are tired.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're used to being on the roll and you're still going, you're like, I'm invincible.
Yep.
It's 2 a.m. and you're still busy brain. The amounts of times I'm out here texting Parker,
Don't make me laugh. I'm already sweating bullets because I've been laughing so much.
You know what I mean? It's
Don't make me laugh
just
anymore.
busy brain, going, and you're used to being on a certain time. And so for me, it's very much my roadblock has oftentimes been myself and not checking in with myself. And I don't know where that necessarily comes from, but I think having to, be on, whether it be to be on command when they need you, you have to show up, there's a game that's happening, or you have to do a presentation, you have to be at school, there's timelines, there's deadlines. So I think it's being mindful of actually no is a full sentence, but I'm saying no to me wanting to do. Yeah.
Responding to the deadlines. Your whole life is deadlines.
Right.
Through athletics and then work, then school.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the holy trinity of stress. So I feel you. I think for me, there's another piece that comes up for me in my work, and that is the internal landscape, the things that I notice that other colleagues may not notice.
Like what?
Let's unpack that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is that what we're going to do today?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Well, usually I'm working in majority white spaces
Yep.
or non-black spaces.
Yeah.
And so there's little things that I pick up on and things that I carry or experiences that I have coming into work that come with me. And so I might show up to work and I don't feel rested. I don't feel settled. And so I got to find different avenues to ground myself before I facilitate, before I, go into that meeting or whatever. And it's rapid fire. We talked about microaggressions with the youth, with some of the work that I was doing last week, and just how they feel like wet clothing. It's like you do your laundry, and instead of just putting it in the dryer, you just wear it. And that the microaggressions are just like layers of wet clothing. And so sometimes I come into work and I'm like, I'm feeling it today, y'all.
Yeah.
But I gotta lock in deadlines or whatever.
And navigating work sometimes not being a safer space either, right? So it's adding on another layer of clothing onto yourself. And I'm wondering how much of that, when you were asking about before, like where does that come from? Is some of that from kind of this Black woman syndrome of being super women? I think there's a piece to that. And I'm also wondering, just kind of historically, for those of us from kind of enslavement background, like the way that we were worked to work past exhaustion, to work until I tell you not to work, that even if you felt tired, it didn't matter what you felt, checking in with yourself, this is what you are supposed to do. And carrying some of that still into, think about the fights that we needed for our rights. People weren't sleeping. Reverend King wasn't just like, wow, I need to go take 5 days off and grab a nap. Right? Like, if you think about where we are, our ability to do what we do and how we got there, I'm just wondering how much of that also in a way plays a role, not just kind of internally with our bodies, but just kind of in terms of societal expectations and that what were you told you have to work harder than everybody else?
Yes.
I know I was told that. Like how much of that plays consciously or unconsciously? And especially if many of us are the only ones, there's this fair or not kind of, well, you have to do it the right, because you're representing not just yourself, not just your family.
That part is tough, is going into spaces knowing you represent
Right?
bad people.
Right?
You do one, it's just, so when things go off in the news, we got a group chat,
Right.
and you're like, oh
You're
no.
like, oh, please, Lord, don't let it be a Black
What's this
person.
gonna do for Black men this week?
Right?
Oh,
That's real talk right there.
It's so interesting you say that, because I think for me, like, my parents came to Canada, in their 30s.
Yep.
They did school when they were in the Congo, and when they arrived, none of their credentials were recognized. So they get here, trying to live this, American dream, and, we're gonna come here, we're gonna work, we're gonna be successful. Just kidding, we're actually gonna, you come in, you're in welfare.
Yeah.
You have to restart, right? And so a lot of the people also who are your people, like you're seeing in community, are also in welfare. And so my parents had to go back to school. So now you're in your mid-30s, you're in school with young people, having to
That's real talk
prove
right
that, I am educated. I do have an accent, but I know 3-4 languages.
I was gonna say.
And that's the thing, is that, like, I think we talked about another episode about like the politics of accents.
Yes.
And how certain accents are valorized and others are not.
Absolutely.
And I think that seeing that, regardless of how tired they were, I know that they went to school, now they're going to work. When my mom had my sister, there was a lot of like complications, so my mom was also disabled, so even with that, I remember like growing up is like, yeah, I could have been on disability, but I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And having that, I grew up with that and seeing my mom wanting to, work. And not so much because she enjoys the work, but to show us that even though I beat the odds, I'm showing you, I'm leading by example. So for me, I saw that and I'm like, like my parents, I'm out here crying because I got tests to do, but they're walking, I don't know how many, like fields to go to this market, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, right? It's so at
That's
that point,
real
it's
talk.
like, obviously you can't compare pain, but when all I know is this, I see, honestly, my biggest inspirations are my parents, and so I'm like, okay, like, if they can do this, I gotta work,
That, and it's so funny because we're apart in age by about 3 decades. And I have the same thing. My parents came into the United States in their 20s separately. No jobs, went and did education. But at some point, my dad was a janitor and he was doing this and that and the other while doing his degree. And he said a phrase, he said, your nose must run if you want good. Your nose has to run if you want good. And that was always the thing. You can do this, despite what the society's telling you, because we come from a country full of people who do all this stuff. But you do have to work harder. And that's not just something we've made up, that's the literal truth. Like the things that we have to do to kind of get to where we need to be. And so wanting to not, like, I don't want to say complain. I have a book called I Dream a World, and it's 50 Black women who changed America. It's a gift my father gave me. And so when I feel down, I just kind of read through some of the stuff, and I was like, what the heck? What? Lisa, you can do this.
Yeah.
And that's not to delegitimize what we're going through, because that's real, but it's also to just remind ourselves that we can do this, we can survive. I mean, to be quite frank, we shouldn't even be here. The systems and so forth, we shouldn't even be here, and we are here. And so for me, I think the challenge is how do we, though, balance ourselves to change some of the stats that we live less long, you live less long than we do, we live less long than the average. How do we start to change some of that, right?
Well, we were just having a conversation recently around different ways we can heal our bodies.
Yes.
And what kind of lessons have we learned or have been passed down to our parents that our generation may be like, nah, you keep that.
Yeah.
Where's the ibuprofen at or whatever?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or, I'm feeling a little sick. And I remember, you know what I'm going to bring up, right?
Yeah.
That story of you in school. And was it you or was it Vishnu?
It was me in school, and I was sick, and my parents, we have Jamaican overproof white rum. That's supposed to be a cure-all for everything. Grandma used to dip it and give it to the baby for teething. It's like, oh, the baby's cold, the baby drunk, but that's okay. So my mom gave it to me in grade 8, and our bathrooms didn't have doors on them, so I went in there dutifully, as I was supposed to, at lunch and washed my face with the white rum to help clear, pat some on me, and landed in the principal's office. And my mom was like, what's the problem? Miss Henry, she can't bring alcohol into the school. Why not? It's medicine. No, it's alcohol. She's not drinking it. She doesn't drink, right? Like, what's your problem? So I've translated that to my own kids, and they get sick, and we have Jamaica Bay rum, put some of that on there with some Vicks, slap up some stuff.
Vicks. Vicks. Vicks is the cure-all for everything. Have it. Come get the Vicks.
It's like Bay rum or whatever, but certain more indigenous type kind of knowledge around wellness. And I appreciate I have a friend who has like lung teas from herbs and different things. And that's, I think, what you're talking about is we've missed some of that ways of being.
We've missed, or it's been replaced with things that are sometimes more harmful.
Yes.
Like we all have deep lineages
Yep.
from different places around the world, and those places had healing practices.
Yes, they did.
And we've replaced them with things that might not actually be the way all the time. Maybe it is the rum that needs to go on the face. That's wild, though. I'm not gonna lie to that. I'm gonna try that one out. Let you know how that goes.
But the healing, like you said, the traditions that we may not have been taking on that we should.
Yeah.
Going back to that, I think you're absolutely right. There's healing there.
Yeah.
and we need to learn what, even just our ceremony. Like when I think of kids 12, 13, 14, different cultures have different acknowledgments. Like what are ours?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. And just thinking about the healing piece again, before we switch gears, the ways that we try and fix ourselves seems like it's quick. We need the fast, instant.
Yep.
Because I got to keep going. I got to keep pushing.
That's true.
I got to make the money. I got to do the thing.
Yeah.
And you're an athlete, so it's like if you get injured, what are they doing? They're like,
Yep.
we need you performing.
Yeah.
So it's like this, like how many Band-Aids can you put on before you gotta?
Can we just rest? Like, is it bad to sometimes want to wish that maybe I catch a cold because then I could just lay down for 3 days with a good excuse?
Yeah.
One of my pet peeves right now, because we live in a hybrid world, is when somebody hops on the Zoom and I hear congestion.
Oh.
And it's not allergies. It's like you're sick.
You're sick.
Go to bed.
And your camera's off, like, you want, let me just schedule it. I'm like, knock it off.
No, it's like, go to bed.
Go to bed.
You're okay. Go
You're
to
done
bed.
for today.
Close the laptop.
Wrap it up.
Wipe your nose and go to bed. We got it from here. That happens all the time.
And it's making sure we pass that on to like our kids. Like Avi said to me the other day, I was so proud. I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm just going to go lay down. I go, why? He goes, I need me time, Mom. I was like, oh.
I did good. I did that. Like I did that.
He said, me time. I was like, I go, child, you go enjoy that me time. You do you. I was like, yes.
That's so good.
Got through.
So mature.
Yeah.
And self-aware.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like how do you teach that awareness?
Yeah.
That self-awareness for your child to be able to use that language and say, I need rest.
Yeah. And it's because that's a life lesson, right? Yeah. You all are better at it than I. I'm hoping to be better at it than, like I watch my mom, you know? It is.
You saw it right here. It's live.
Right now, live.
Right now.
But it's a continuous process. And I think the world we live in, like you said, will always try to test you.
Yeah.
And it really is about like rest. Like I just did that with my family, like turn it off.
Right.
Like it's not happening and people are saying, I can't get a hold of it. It's like, nope, it's time to just be quiet.
My pops, one time he was leaving for the weekend, and he doesn't do the cell phones. Like he's like, if you're doing dumb things, y'all find out. Like just don't do dumb things, right? Like I'm like, yo, but what if something comes? I can't list you as an emergency contact because if I won't be able. Nobody's gonna be able to. Nah, it's fine. You shouldn't be doing that anyways. Like you know what I mean? And he one time he like pinged me the back of the head. And before he left, I was like, what is that for? He's like, that's for all the dumb things you're thinking about doing this weekend. Okay.
Very good.
But does it help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're about to do the
Yeah.
You remember the pain.
I know what time it is. Are you kidding me? Friday? Yeah.
You're hanging out with your friends, all of a sudden your head's like,
Yeah.
oh, gotta go.
Yeah, sorry, man. Wrap it up now.
Time
It's
to go
true.
home.
It's true.
I think it would be awesome to somehow teach healing to students, like to our children.
Yes.
Like as important as English and math and the rest of that is, this is the key to almost everything. Because, and we teach ourselves to, especially, I've noticed this in sport and other places, but just to work through that pain. Just, get back up. And then people are cheering like, oh, you did it. Oh, you're walking on that broken ankle.
Yeah, no days off. Screaming in the gym, no days off.
It's a really interesting like place to navigate though. Like it, because like to be honest, I'm like, I am fully that. Like I'm thinking about times and I'm like, yeah, I remember like, because you have so much adrenaline, right? Like you get hit, you're on the ground, you're like, do I get off? Nah, I'm good, right? And like, but I find like, especially at our level, like you go to this dark place and like it's so interesting because you train to be in that dark place. Like when you're pushing yourself in conditioning, you're pushing yourself in fitness, like it's painful, but you train your brain that like, I trust myself that I'll be okay in this dark place. So then when you come to game day, this dark place is just, I'm pushing through it. So then after that, you feel all the feels.
Yeah.
But I think, I find that also beautiful. Like for me, like my sport is like healing to me, you know? And like, even though I'm injured right now, I find that I think about like, if I can't play rugby and I'm boxing, and I just go to this dark place and I'm going. And it's really interesting because for me, like that, like physical exertion is like, I'm putting all this energy into one place. I'm channeling it all in one place. And when I'm done, it's very cathartic and I'm like, it's out. And it's done and I could be back.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of healing, at least for me, and I think for a lot of athletes, is that I'm pushing myself and with a team, with my teammates, and we're together, and then when we're out of that dark place together, we come back to the surface. So it's interesting also in how we understand healing as well, and that also knowing that rest is to come. I'm going so hard because rest is coming.
So I wonder if that doesn't translate, because you've got the endorphins and other things happening, right? So there's some real physiological stuff happening, which is why exercise is so important. It's anti-anxiety, antidepressants, all of that. But I wonder if that translates into non-exercise as well, that some of the work we all do, that we put ourselves in those spaces. We go to the dark place, right? And we're in it, and we're dealing with it, right? And then you come out and your body's like, and your mind is like, ooh, let me see what junk I can watch on TV right now, right? But there is a sense of a heal, like that place you were working at is a little bit better off. And I wonder if if it doesn't work in that same way. I've never thought of it that way. We go into the dark place.
There's like a moment where, and it happens when I'm facilitating different spaces, or I'm feeling nervous, or I got the butterflies, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then a switch happens, and I'm like, I'm on. I'm on. I'm in like a flow state. And something that I've had to do now is think about the after. So I know that I have, and you've been really helpful in this because you're very vocal about, I know what I'm going to do after this. You know, nobody talked to me or whatever. For me, I need to move my body. I need to either go for a walk, I need to climb, you know, I'll go and just, I need to move. I run hot, and my baseline is irritation. And so when things happen in workshops or whatever, I carry it, I gotta do something with it. And so that's really important, but it took me a very long time to understand that.
That's what I want for young people, you know, anybody who's watching this right now, is to think about what heals you. Like what gives you that calm, that brings you back to center, whatever is that thing. And just learn how to just be okay with that. And know that it's going to change over time. That's one of the things I've noticed. The things that used to be calm me don't necessarily, and I don't know if it's because maybe some of the stuff I'm doing is more elevated, so I need more of an elevated, you know, calm,
like
or
yeah.
I'm not quite sure if the body's just changing and things just don't work the way they used to, so I have to find something else. I'm not quite sure what that is. And I'm sure you've seen that with your steps in athleticism, that certain things aren't the way they were when you were beginning.
Definitely. I think, at least like for me, the calming things, I mean, after like rugby culture, oftentimes the games are done and then you have, you know, drinks with your teammates, and there's just like that element of like being with my teammates is like that calm. And I think also when we were talking about the dark place and like pushing yourself, is knowing, allocating time for rest, you know. And I think the self-awareness piece that we're talking about was not knowing when that's coming. We're just going. And then it just stays dark.
True. Yeah.
Then we're just out here pushing, and there's nothing to look forward to. So I think for me, it's very much knowing that, you know, after the game's done, the game's done. When the game's on, we're on. till then, we push through, and then when you're done, it's over. You know, so that's kind of like how, I mean, it's like the game of life, but it's like, I don't know. But it definitely translates in all the cheesy ways, but in the like, yeah.
That was real Lion King.
I know.
It was good though. It was a bar. I think that oh man, we're off the rails today. I wish we had more time to talk about that school piece, because I'm thinking about the kids and what they, growing up, what was taught to me, which was no rest was involved in any of that. So I think we should revisit that in the future. But do you have any last thoughts that you want to share before we wrap for the day around roadblocks to healing?
You two?
I think I'm grateful to have you both in my life, because I learn from the different pendulum swing of like extreme intense, busy brain.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm talking about you right now. Athlete, you know what I mean? High level situations. And then all of the titles. We don't have an episode long enough.
I know, we should do that.
I know, right?
With all the titles.
But I learned so much, and I'm really, really appreciative, because you all help me rest. And we are able to come together and like eat before the pod and do these things that help us ground. So I'm just appreciative of that.
I'm appreciative of how you make us laugh. And that truly is one of the, see?
You gotta have haters.
That is
life.
truly one of the best medicines, is finding time to do that. You all have any last thoughts before I?
Good.
So to all of you out there, we really want you to think about that dark space that you may go into. Don't stay there. We want you to really think about the ways that you heal your body, and let us know. Send us a note about how you do that. Maybe we'll adopt some of that strategy and let other people know that. But until we see you again, please make sure you take time to rest, heal, and laugh. Until our next show, we hope you have a wonderful day from our fam to yours. Thank you for joining us.